Okay, we are now back in session for public comment. The first slip we have is from Felix Procacci.
Felix Procacci, 1165 Bond Street, Franklin Square, New York. I heard all that wrangling about money and using fund balance. We're supposed to have a structurally balanced budget. But last year, I remember that a majority of the board wanted to pass $800,000 in raises, but there was no fighting. I don't know why you didn't fight that said that was too much money to spend, but everyone, seemed to support that back then, and the supervisor who ripped it up got criticized. But, I believe in structurally balanced budget. Why don't you, call it what it is? And the 4% tax cut budget, that's supporting taxpayers. If we use fund balance, then it's no longer a tax cut budget. It's just, fake. And I had foiled this, and I did it twice just to make sure I got it verified. I asked for the retirees and terminations, and most of the terminations have to do with part-time employees and seasonal employees. And I only got 44 retirees in 2018. And I remember from the budget hearing that we're going to have 100. Now, I even sent it back to Marie Jerome. I says, is this right? Because I thought that maybe they were mixed up with the terminations. I says, can you make sure they're separate? Because 44 and 100 is a big difference. So, I don't want you to answer questions now, but just keep in mind, if we don't have 100 retirees, we don't have that less savings that we promised the taxpayers. Therefore, that tax cut is a mirage, and we're just going to take fund balance to make up the difference. And also, to speak to what Mr. Rotkamp was talking about on the Sandy victim issue, Mrs. Archibald, who made it to the NBC News clip that Paisley Chang did a while back, she got the permits. She got the permits, did the work, and then after she did the work, and her house was completed and she needed the certificate of occupancy to close out the permits and everything, then she was told she had to raise the house afterwards, but she did the right thing. She didn't go ahead and just hire contractors without permits. So, and there are people that I understand also are in that same situation where they did the right thing. They didn't just go out and fix the house. How many contractors, I know there are some, but how many contractors will work without permits? So, and one thing I like to discuss just again, because it's so important, is on the ethics law. We're currently in violation of ethics law, so I'd like all those people who feel they're ethical to ask for the ethics board for not accuse anyone of breaking the law, but make an inquiry as to, is it correct that we now don't put out financial disclosures online like we are required to by our own town law? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Procacci. Margaret Castillo.
Good afternoon. My name is Dr. Margaret Castillo. I live at 2415 Maple Avenue in Seaford. And I'm here with a member of a group that we've started. There were Sandy victims that are still in the plight of recovery. And we have some issues. Today we want to bring up 2 points. One of them is the Department of Buildings, and I have to contradict Commissioner Rotkamp's idea of it being such a sound system for Sandy victims. You know the saying, to hell and back? Well, Sandy victims have been to hell, and many of us are not back yet. And a lot of it started with the Department of Buildings. I myself visited one of the satellites that was in Seaman's Neck Park 5 times. Nobody helped me there. They just gave me papers and told me I had to do everything myself and bring it here to the Department of Buildings. So in the Seaman's Neck satellite, permits were not issued. So that's incorrect information. So anyway, Department of Buildings, I don't understand, and we've talked about this, and we have a group of 14 of us that are together still battling to recover from Sandy. And it takes all of the areas from Oceanside to Island Park, so it's all your constituents are included in this plight. I live in Seaford, Bonnie lives in Island Park. Lido Beach. We have people in Freeport, people in Baldwin, people in Long Beach. We are like up against barriers with Department of Buildings. I had an inspection done. My foundation inspection was approved, and my floor is buckling. I hired at a $2,000 expense an engineer to come in. There's an entire wall missing of the foundation. That was in the plans. Why are these things happening? It's not fair to us. The costs are astronomical to us, and it's because there seems to be a disconnect with the Department of Buildings. Just from the day that we had to begin the process of getting a permit, the mistreatment that we were endured was unbelievable. I was to this building 19 times to get a permit to lift my house. 19 times I recorded it. Every time I came, there were 2 people that treated me with any kind of respect. One of them, I broke down in a hall and I was so upset, and Inspector Gunther came and said, "How can I help you?" And he helped me, and he brought me to the right places. And the people who I had met 15 minutes before and told me they couldn't help me, all of a sudden, because Inspector Gunther was with me, they could help me. It was astonishing. And it just got so bad that I went to Supervisor Santino, and he helped me with, he assigned a liaison. And then John Novella was the only other person that helped me. He personally helped me finish, even against Rebecca First's wishes. They almost had an argument in the main hall because she didn't want to give me my permit, and he said, "No, she's getting it today." And these are the things that we've endured. You're going to have to speak the other issue. We have one other issue to talk about, so that will be on her time. So,
Ma'am, could you just state your name and address for the record?
Can I just ask before you start speaking, as far as your issue in Seaford, can you meet with Marcus afterwards in my office if there's anything that remains outstanding? I'm not aware of your specific situation since I represent you in Seaford. If there's anything that in my office that we can do to help you, I'm more than happy to do that. I mean, so Marcus is over here. If you could raise your hand. If there's anything that's outstanding, I'm not aware of it.
Hi, I'm Bonnie Salsoni. I live in Lido Beach. Thank you very much for having this today. Appreciate you listening and everybody here. Basically, my issue is with bad contractor, 2 bad contractors, and dealing with consumer affairs and the district attorney. And we have an appointment to meet with Rebecca tomorrow, which that's great. We didn't even know she existed till last week, so we're really happy about that. And the ability to be heard. The problem is with these contractors not being licensed, and they're still out there. They're lifting houses, they're knocking down walls, they don't have permits, they don't have licenses, but they came running in to us, "Oh, we can help you, we can fix everything, we can do it." There's one contractor in particular who is suing one of us in our group who has 6 permits, and I don't believe, I'm not sure, I don't think he's licensed, but he's still working, he's still elevating. And I think what we would like to see going forward, just putting this out there, is we'd like to see a little bit more formal connection between the building department and the bad contractors. And Suffolk has this shame on you bad contractor list, something like that we could put into effect that people will know. Like, I had no idea what to do to find a contractor, no idea. I mean, I had just lost my husband, and I was and then it was just awful. I mean, the storm and losing my husband, and then I lost my mom. And this guy came running in saying, "I lost my mom because the first bad contractor didn't finish a doorway. She tripped, she fell, she died."
What is the name? The contractor?
Emil Construction.
E-M-I-L.
E-M-I-L. Emil Construction.
From where?
He's St. Luke's Place in Baldwin is the address, which is weird because it's a house with a big yard with his truck in the yard, but I think it's a residence, not a business.
Well, that might be a violation of the town code.
Yeah, well, he's been reported for years. When I reported him to Michael Rabb in early 2013, when Michael Rabb was liaison between Nassau and the People and New York Rising.
I was just wondering, I know you said you've been dealing with consumer affairs. Did they, because obviously, did they pull the license of the contractor?
No.
I know you don't want to go through the whole story, but,
No,
okay.
They, in fact, are supporting, they didn't finish with the Emil Construction, but the second one is Alexander Alvarez. Alexander Alvarez. Design Concepts at 234 East Merrick Road in Freeport, and that this guy is still in business is mind-blowing. He has hundreds of thousands of dollars from New York Rising people. He is, I don't want to say what he is. Anyway, he had gotten, I don't know how he got trailers of his own company into Bethpage Park for people to live in while their houses were going up, but everybody was paying him money. And we're going to bring that to Rebecca tomorrow, but I don't know how he's still in business. He's just a complete fraud.
I just want to add in, I'm sorry, I'm speaking for her, but the other contract, the Leonez Home Improvement, he actually has 9 permits out for house lifting, which he is not permitted by license to do. And the town has given him 9 permits.
Thank you very much for bringing this to our attention. On that letter that went out, there's a phone number. We're trying to expedite the process of dealing with residual issues from Sandy. I'm so sorry for your loss. I'm so sorry for what you're going through still 6.5 years after Sandy. But please.
I'm afraid I'm not going to be able to get up now.
Yeah.
So late.
We are actively reaching out to try to find pools of funds to help people who are in this predicament. Thank you, ladies. Pearl Jacobs.
Pearl Jacobs, Nostrand Garden Civic Association, Uniondale. Sorry, Senior Councilwoman Goosby's not here because I was going to ask, I had a civic meeting last night. After my meeting, one of my members asked, when will Senior Councilwoman Goosby visit Uniondale? I know she has been in Roosevelt last week. I guess she's doing community meetings, so I was going to ask, maybe you can ask for me, Supervisor, or her staff.
I think there's members of her
There's
staff.
probably a member of her staff here. Yeah, right over there. You can see that later.
Could you ask Senior Councilwoman Goosby, when would she be visiting, having a community meeting in Uniondale? Uniondale residents are asking, please. And can you get back to me? Clarence has my email address. Thank you. And you've been to Uniondale. Thank you so much, Supervisor Gillen. You've been there, last month, and I know you're coming back on Thursday. Thank you. And the residents appreciate that. So I have a question regarding, is there some sort of a water tower revitalization project going on? They're painting water towers?
Yes, Commissioner, is the Commissioner here? Yes, we are. Commissioner's going to speak a little bit further on that.
Thank you.
Yes, in the current budget, there's money for design services related to the Uniondale tank.
I think we have, 2 tanks or 3?
Well, there's one in Uniondale.
There's one in Uniondale?
Yes,
I thought there was 2.
The other one that's the East Meadow Water District.
Okay, but Uniondale shares that. Did they have, I think, if I'm not mistaken, I do believe they have the name of Uniondale on that one.
It has the name of Uniondale because it's in the Uniondale community.
Okay.
We didn't want to put the different communities' name on it.
Is that going to be painted as well? Just one is going to be painted?
Right now, we're designing the Uniondale tank.
And that's located, I'm sorry, refresh.
That's the one at the foot of Hempstead Boulevard.
Okay.
The one more
and
northerly.
the one that East Meadow shares with Uniondale, even though it says Uniondale, that's not going to be painted?
Not in the current budget, it's not, no.
Okay. All right, and I'm not going to talk about the other one with no name, the no-name water tower, but it used to be Uniondale. But thank you. Okay.
Thank you, Ms. Jacobs. Donna Rezek. Donna Rezek from North Belmore. Marcia Berrios. Marcia Berrios. Stuart Kroll.
Afternoon, Stu Kroll, Great Neck. I've got a couple of things to talk about, so I guess I'll have to talk quickly. Starting with a shelter, I think our shelter has the potential to be an excellent one. The problem, and it's certainly a severe one, is top management. Our director, Mike Pastore, allegedly wants to be transferred. I've brought this up before. Why has he not been transferred? Why also can't he be fired for cause? at this point. I mean, what are there, 5, 6 lawsuits against him? Would one, if the worst that could happen is if he sued the town, is one more lawsuit going to make any great deal of difference? My personal opinion is no. Our dog trainer, Christy Fonte, is working on a month-to-month basis for a few months already. Everyone knew when her contract would be up, so why is it that it's taken so long for an RFP to fill her position? I don't know if anybody has any information on that, but certainly be happy to hear it. In the meantime, some dogs have been turned away from the shelter. Is Christy Fonte the one making the decisions as to what dogs are being turned away? No dog should be turned away, and certainly not by somebody whose claim to fame is 4 out of 5 of their stated qualifying credentials are pure fabrications. The best thing about our shelter is the spay-neuter program. We have a $5 million budget. Perhaps someone will be so kind as to explain to me why each trapper is now being limited to anywhere between 1 and 3 cats per day. It is barely the beginning of kitten season. This is only going to get much worse. I'm not sure when our current liaison, who our current liaison is to the shelter. Perhaps an explanation might be in order as to why this program is now in effect. When the number of cats you can bring in on a daily basis changes so randomly, it makes a difficult job of a trapper even more difficult. If the permissible number goes down at the last moment, you have worked so hard only to release cats that will now be more difficult to trap again. Each time you try to trap a cat, they become much more difficult to get. What is needed from management are consistent programs that our residents can rely upon. While I admittedly have not been to the shelter recently, I have seen numerous pictures of not only dogs, but adult cats in cages. A few months ago, I went to the shelter, Laura, with one of your attorneys, the purpose of which was for me to evaluate and make recommendations as to how things could be improved. I recommended an easy fix, at least for part of the problem: remove the large bank of cages in what was mainly an adult cat room. Adult cats do not belong in cages, no cats do. They get depressed, withdrawn, making adoption that much harder. It is unequivocally cruel. Obviously, nothing was done about this situation. Is it too much trouble for a pastorio or whomever to find a place to put those cages? They could have put them outside. They could have done, a whole bunch of different things with them. As to why nothing ever changes, I have my own thoughts, which I will share with you. Many employees, particularly higher-level ones, are politically connected. They are satisfied with the status quo and are ill-inclined to take risk. Some of them come from North Hempstead. Some of them come from Long Beach. Of course, they did a great job over there. Inspector Clouseau could have done a better job in Long Beach. Why must we subsidize failed candidates getting jobs handed to them as college presidents and now working in county clerk's office at $160,000 a year? As somebody who pays considerable tax, I'm tired of seeing animals suffer and political vampires turn a blind eye to it. We must endeavor to make citizens more aware of what is being done, and perhaps then the political machinations will slow down. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kroll. Susan Goldstone. Lucille Defina.
Good afternoon. I wasn't going to speak about anything today, but then I am sitting next to Diane, and her phone is blowing up with such horrible accusations, and again, the same attacks. And yesterday I had a conversation with her, and I was actually very happy to hear that her lawsuit was dismissed. And I've tried, and I told her last night, good, just end it, Diane, put it past you, go on. At this stage of our lives, we could be doing much better things. But Diane was torn, and she wanted to think about it. But then after sitting next to her today and seeing what she goes through on a daily basis, I'm torn myself. Maybe she should appeal it, like everyone is telling her. She has so many people telling her, you must appeal it, you can't stay like this, it's not safe what you're going through, the threats, the name calling. Until you live it, you cannot understand it. So I'm sitting right next to her today, and she's showing me her phone and showing me what is said, and I can't even repeat at this microphone some of the words and the names that they're calling her. Why I'm bringing it up to you is because one thing I know for sure, and I don't have too many answers to too many things involving this town board and the way this local government works, but one thing I know for sure is that the old administration, when they wanted to do something, they did it. They made sure it happened. And now I see, okay, you're here. And from what I see, they still seem to control what is happening. So I cannot understand at this stage of the game. I kind of do understand. I can't understand why you don't understand that the reason Pastore is here, Fonte is here, all the same people are here, the same people that they put here are still here. And it's going to come back and backfire because you empowered them. You threw a lot of fuel to the fire. And I think it was a big mistake. And I'm not saying that you should be going against them or against the volunteer program. I think you need to be a little smarter. And I think you should understand why this is happening. People are listening and believing what they're told. And they were told by certain people certain things. So it's all about perception. It's all about brainwashing. And you're in the position that you could have opened their eyes, but you didn't.
Thank you, Ms. Tafina. Mita Meride?
Mita Meride, Baldwin resident. I'm concerned about being in April at this point and not seeing any real effort, directives or initiatives that address the lack of diversity in the contracting with the township. I'm still waiting to see what are the next steps with regard to the service-disabled veteran-owned businesses, minority and women businesses. I'm not seeing any of those things on this agenda, on this calendar. No news conferences, no press releases, no back and forth, no newsday spreads about what's happening as far as procurement and outreach and generating jobs and contracts for diverse populations. What I am seeing just seems to be a different type of divisive mindset that is not benefiting the residents. It really isn't. It's going on 3 o'clock. Those of us who had to sit here and wait and then to be told that there was going to be a half-hour break for lunch, we didn't get that break. We're not making money sitting here. It just seems like the debt is increasing with projects that are going to be fund balanced at the end of the year to make it right. That makes no sense to me. It doesn't make any sense to a whole lot of people, many of them who are either watching this via live stream from their second or third job, or for those who may be watching it because they have no job. That should not be, not in the largest township, you know, in America's first suburb, where we still can't even tell the demographic structure of our veterans, let alone our minority community. That is a disgrace. And the conduct that was witnessed today, this is supposed to be a new dynamic, a new era. We're not trying to go backwards. We're not trying to go backwards. The costs are too high. We're in storm-damaged, vulnerable locations. I feel for the residents for Seaford. I know some people who are in Freeport who still have their homes that looks like, you know, they could do a space-age movie in the south end of Freeport, the way those houses are lifted. These people are still paying taxes and they can't live in their homes. That's what we should be talking about. That's what you should be fighting about. You should be fighting for the people who can't be here, who can't speak for themselves. And you definitely should be doing a better job in addressing the needs of our veterans. You know, the parade permits, all that is all well and good. Making sure there's a flag at a Bola or a 7-Eleven, fine, but they need jobs, they need contracts, they need help, and they need it now. We need to do a better job.
Thank you, Ms. Meride. Donna Teitler? Donna Teitler. There's a note on here that she left, okay. Mary Ellen Cray.
Mary Ellen Cray, Uniondale. In response to the point that Mrs. Jacobs brought up about her email, I'd like to know, is there absolutely no staff in the office of the town attorney? Is Mr. Ra the only person who works there?
I believe her comment had to do with a traffic issue. Is that correct? Is that what you're talking about?
Yes, it was, I believe it was connected back to a traffic issue, Mr. Ra.
Did someone from traffic speak with her?
Yeah, I think you were not here, so I did ask Ms. Jacobs to speak to Mr. Reed about the traffic issue. Ms. Jacobs, did you have an opportunity to speak to Mr. Reed? Okay.
So I think it was addressed.
The point at issue is the fact that Mrs. Jacobs sent you an email which was not responded to for over 3 weeks. And I find this egregious because if you have staff in your office, it's very simple to say, I've received your email and,
Well, it gets forwarded.
so-and-so has...
When a traffic email comes in, it gets forwarded to traffic, and they respond. Well, I can try to look and see why that happened, but the process is if we get something in the town attorney's office, when we get traffic in, it goes straight out to traffic. It goes straight out to them. Because
However, it is plain and simple courtesy to indicate the receipt of an email.
I apologize.
As you should. Thank you. The Cold War, I was trying to figure out from 1945 to 1990. Is that about right?
Mr. Kovic,
Just wondering what the parameters.
I think that I don't have the years in front of me. Do we have the? Around that time.
So you're figuring when the wall came down in Berlin is the end of the Cold War? Somebody should have that available now. Okay, thank you very much.
Mr. Shuren? Rich Shuren?
Jefferson Avenue, Harbor Isle. Once again, same as last meeting, I mean, I think it's incredibly disrespectful that board members are not present when the public is speaking. Mr. Blakeman's not here, Mr. Dunn's not here, Gooseby isn't here. It's just disrespectful.
I know that Councilman Blakeman had a Shiva call, so let's just, before we attack people, there could be reasons for it.
Well, it's disrespectful to the public.
Senior Councilwoman had a doctor's appointment, so I think we can all settle down a little bit.
Okay, I listened to Mr. Rotkamp speak when Ms. Gordon was talking, and if I understand him correctly, it's the homeowner's fault if they didn't come in and check their records to see their status. If that's the position of the town of Hempstead and the building department going forward, I mean, I think that's a very, very, very poor strategy and poor message. Just want to say that. The other thing I want to ask is election season is coming up, and this is a question for you, Mr. Ra, and I know Ethics Council, I don't know if he's still here, but my question, and I know you're taking this up in a week when you talk about ethics, but my question is it permissible for board members who are candidates to appear at restaurants and other venues that are owned by persons who are doing business with the town and hold campaign events there and do other business with these people who also do business with the town as part of their campaign? Mr. Ra, is that permissible under the ethics rules?
Yes.
Are they permitted to take contributions, in-kind contributions, services or whatever, as part of their campaigns, and still participate in voting on their contracts? Is that permissible?
Two different questions.
Yeah, okay.
If somebody has a pending matter before the board, as a rule, will not accept contributions from that entity if they have a pending matter. Once that matter is resolved one way or another, there's no prohibition.
I'm speaking of vendors who have leases with the town board and also run restaurants and other establishments. You know who I'm talking about. Is it permissible for town board members to hold campaign events there, receive in-kind contributions or contributions and still participate in voting on the extensions of their leases or making other decisions with respect to their business with the town?
You linked two different questions. If there's a pending matter, the town board members do not accept contributions and do not hold events there. If the matter has been resolved one way or another, there's no prohibition.
So my question is, if they're taking contributions now and they're doing business as part of their campaign with those leaseholders now, is the town's position that when that lease comes up for review next year, it's fine that the board member can still vote and participate in the decision in that respect to that lease because they're not taking the contribution at that moment?
There is if a lease would expire, let's say at the end of 2019, there's a 6-month period in which the board members would not take contributions.
Well, let me say, I know you're taking up ethics legislation in a future meeting. I think that's an incredibly poor policy. To believe that you can separate by time a contribution or a gift or a business decision that was made by your campaign, and because it happened a few months ago, you're free of now to vote on that lease. I mean, I think that's an incredibly poor policy, and you ought to revisit that in your ethics legislation. And one last thing, if you will. This morning I participated in an event in front of LIPA headquarters that was sponsored by about 200 members of the Northport community protesting LIPA's tax certiorari situation. And I know you're familiar with this. The members in the town, residents of the town of Hempstead are suffering under this as well. It's a very, very serious issue. People in Northport have their local politicians helping them fight LIPA and protect their residents. And I'm asking you, particularly you, Councilman D'Esposito, and you, Supervisor Gillen, to please support the community's battle really for its life against these LIPA tax cert cases.
I will tell you that we've met with people at LIPA, and we are talking to the county about this lawsuit and about a potential settlement with it.
Yeah, well, a settlement doesn't help us. What helps us is legislation in Albany that's going to protect us if we lose or if there's a settlement, because even a settlement is going to increase our taxes in such a way that it's going to cause many, many people not to be able to live there. And that was the point of this demonstration. The people in Northport and their local politicians they're not interested in a settlement. They're interested in fighting, and they're interested in getting support in Albany to do something about the tax cert case and convince LIPA to drop the tax cert case and protect the residents. We put up with these polluting and dangerous power plants in our neighborhood as host communities, and they have an obligation to us.
Thank you. Thank you for your comments, Mr. Shuren. We'd be happy to follow up with you on this. Rory Gordon.
Rory Gordon, Hauppauge, New York. Those two gals that were here earlier, I had never heard or seen them before, Margaret from Seaford and the other blonde lady. And in speaking today, I'm speaking on behalf of the people who are not here because they're afraid to speak because of retribution from the building department. Now, because I've become such an advocate on this red and yellow deal, and I was involved with the boat people, and now I've made all these contacts that I never anticipated on doing, so many people are reaching out to me. They're scared. They are actually afraid. Now, and I was like that too. I had my apprehensions when I first came here to speak. I know I had been targeted in the past at my business by the building department. I know I was targeted in my litigation with the building department. So I understand their plight. And you guys have no idea how many residents are in that position. They're scared to death of the building department because the building department is really mismanaged. And obviously, I don't know these ladies, but they kind of confirmed that today. Now that the town is reevaluating the situation, can somebody explain the formula that's used to determine whether or not a house has to be raised?
Ms. Gordon, we'd be happy to explain that formula to you. We can take you aside and explain to you. It's very complex. Commissioner, would you meet with Ms. Gordon and explain the formula by which we determine whether or not a structure is substantially damaged?
If I don't agree with that, because I've done an extensive amount of reading, where does that lie? For an example, there's a constituent that believes that the BZA has the ability to overturn the decision of the building department on a preliminary damage assessment. Am I correct to state that the BZA only makes zoning decisions?
We are trying to institute an appeals process for these homeowners who are unaware of the preliminary damage assessment that was done on their home and now find themselves in this challenging predicament.
That's not the question I asked. Rich Regino, would you be able to answer that? You worked for the BZA for a really long time.
Any determination of the buildings department that's made as a matter of an authority given to them under Article 16 of the town law is always appealable to the Zoning Board of Appeals.
But do the Zoning Board of Appeals have the power to overturn something that's got nothing to do with zoning?
Well, the answer is yes, depending on what the matter is.
Well, we're talking about the red houses. I don't see in the code where they have that ability.
The issue would be pursuant to what legal criteria does the buildings department make their decision. If it's something that emanates from Article 16 of the town law, then it is appealable to the zoning board.
And can you just tell me what Article 16 is? Because I have not familiar with it.
Oh, it's New York State Town Law, Article 16, zoning and planning.
Okay.
You just do a Google search.
Okay. Thank you. I really appreciate that. And Laura, I do appreciate you sending out the letter. No matter what controversy came about it, I think it had to be done. And you took the bull by the horns, and I'm giving you credit where a lot of people, you know, have condoned you for it, but it's just not fair that those people were left in the dark. And I feel their pain. I talk to people all the time. I've been thrusted into the middle of this because I dealt with so many people in Wantor, Seaford, Belmore, Oceanside, and Island Park over the boating issue. These people they're scared, and it's a terrible position to be in because the thing that they own is their home, and that's the largest investment most of these people have made in their entire life. And now they've got their heads up their butt, and they're so upset. And I just know I wouldn't want to be in that position. And on the note that Richard Sheeran said, I love that you're always here, or 90% of the time. It's unfair that everybody just disappears when we wait around all day. And thank you. I do appreciate it.
Thank you for your comments. Barbara Thomas.
Good afternoon. My name is Barbara Thomas. I'm from Massapequa. I'm here just to thank someone I do not know, but I'm very happy that she has come into working towards a better animal shelter. And it's the new CEA president, Teresa Kahuka. I've been talking since 2015 about the issues within the volunteer program. With absolutely no changes of it, no ending of the attacks, no ending of some things that are actually security concerns for people. And your volunteers, as you, I'm sorry, Supervisor Gillen, claim to protect all these purple people, These purple people are doing some wild and outrageous things. And it really has to come to a stop. And I'm happy that the new president of the CEA has come in and immediately identified all these problems that are going on in the animal shelter. And she's the one that's going to bring forth change. So that's a thank you to Teresa Kahutka.
Thank you for your comments, Teresa Kahutka. Good afternoon, Ms. Kahutka.
I also would like to talk about the shelter and the volunteers. Excuse me. For the most part, I believe a lot of them are there for the right reasons. Unfortunately, you do have a group that have gone a little astray. Unfortunately, they are spoiling it for the bunch who are there for the right reasons. It's my understanding that there are 134 of them. I understand that a handbook came out. I recently scanned through that. But I want to know how our staff is supposed to control 134 people going in and out. They have enough to do during the day. Is there a limit on how many volunteers can come in and out in one day? That I would like to know. Do they have assigned hours, or do they just randomly show up when they feel like it? Like I said, I did receive a copy of the volunteer handbook, and I think it's a pretty good start keeping track of the volunteers and making them accountable and having some form of semblance. And as I say that, there's a part of the handbook that does refer to social media. I would like to show you some of the social media posts that these people put up that you so much protect. Okay, here's one. Would anybody else like to see it? Here's another one. I find this very disturbing, and these are the people we're letting into our shelter with our animals and my members who are harassed on a daily basis. I just hope that something will be done, because as far as the rulebook is concerned, they will be disciplined. And if you would like their names, I did print smaller ones for everybody to look at. And for my last few seconds, I just want to reiterate that I just hope that what's listed in the handbook as far as discipline, that those actions are taken, because this is pretty disturbing, to say the least.
Ms. Kahutka, if you have any complaints about actions going on, please let us know and we will investigate.
I would love to let you know, but unfortunately I can never meet with you. I meet with Mr. La Caruba, who has been very sweet, but I would really like to speak with you.
I'd love that. Yes, let's set up a meeting.
Mr. Ra, just moving forward, if we can, if you can coordinate with Ms. Kahutka. I don't know who these people are. Some of this stuff is actually cut off, but I think that if these people have access to our shelter and are having problems with CSEA workforce, I'm not even sure who this is directed towards, but perhaps your office can conduct an investigation and get the information that's needed from the union.
Diane Madden.
Diane Madden. I do as well have to thank Terry. It's just disgraceful, though, that Bobby Thomas is, when we talk about 9/11, she served there and She has been so disrespected at the animal shelter, thrown off pages, attacked, to the point where she had to begin litigation. So these volunteers aren't just destructive, they're also causing litigation at the animal shelter. And if I do appeal, that will probably be primarily what I need to raise, so it stops, although it looks pretty hopeful that we have a new CSEA. You know, I always assumed they just didn't take action, the union, but it's a new day, and I'm happy about that. I want to talk about a meeting and the outcome of an investigation, Mr. Rao, which I was told is inconclusive regarding Christy Fonte's credentials and whether she had them at the time of hiring and the hiring process, which she did not, by the way. So I want to understand this correctly, that the town attorney's office and the investigator cannot say for sure that she had qualifications to apply for this job, and yet she remains out of contract, billing taxpayers $109,000 a year, and at the animal shelter. Could you please stop the clock? Thank you.
I'm sorry, Ms. Madigan. Is there, I don't understand, what's the question?
So the outcome of that investigation was inconclusive. That should have been enough to give to the board and say, we cannot say Ms. Fonte had qualifications. That should be enough. Now I'm told that there is another investigation going on about Ms. Fonte, and yet we've not been submitted. In fact, I have some here I would like you to see, each board member, because this is an agency that claims and makes a statement that her certifications that she was claiming are false. That's not to say she hasn't run out and gotten certifications, but that's been part of the problem in overall, is that the town was hiring people and six-figure contracts, that the entire hiring process was fraudulent. And speaking of that, Councilwoman Sweeney, I had called your office, spoke to someone in your office, and I proposed legislation to address this, that if anyone moving forward would apply for positions, go through the RFP hiring process, and later it was determined by the board that they lied on this during this process or about credentials, that they would have to repay the taxpayers whatever they earned, whether it was 1 year's salary, 6 months salary, 10-year salary. Sounds like a good ethics move to me. Could you please tell me what you think about that? I didn't hear back.
Is Rich Regina here? Have we looked into that?
We did, Councilwoman, and we think there are inhibitions, at least in state civil service law, about that.
Is there anything that can be done?
We'll look into it.
And then I wanted to speak about this play group, which, by no disrespect to this play group that came in that originally, Laura Gillen, you tried to charge taxpayers $10,000 for, got a grant for $10,000. You mentioned that hundreds of staff and volunteers would be trained. I would say a dozen. And by the way, I was told about 90% or more of the staff at the Town of Hempstead Animal Shelter were never even offered to participate, didn't know this program was coming in. This was a valuable loss. But the only one that gained from it was you, because you had 5 or 10 press people there claiming that these dogs would be going out, each dog, which sounded great to me, every single dog was going to go out in a play group every single day for 30 minutes. Well, guess what? I don't think they've been out there twice since this, because this was not properly advertised. Again, this all speaks to mismanagement. I don't know, with all due respect, Mr. Lakaruba, what you're doing there. I would love to know what is going on, that you know a $10,000. Dollars in grant money are precious these days. Normally I wouldn't recommend a $5 million animal shelter to ask for $10,000 when there are people rubbing pennies together to stay afloat in rescue. And yet you have a $10,000 program where you put it out to the press like it was some big thing, and about 10 people participated.
Thank you for your comments. That concludes today's board meeting. Everybody have a nice day.
Oh, it is, thanks.
George.